Every time I confessed to the school beauty, she would send me a red envelope. The first time was 520. The second time was 1314. The third time was 5,201,314. Then she coldly rejected being my girlfriend. I thought she was just using money to get rid of a simp like me. Until one day, I picked up her phone and discovered her phone contained 9,990 secretly taken photos of me. She had saved my contact name as Darling Husband. Turns out she had fallen for me at first sight long ago. Yet she quietly enjoyed the process of me chasing her. After learning the truth, I made a phone call to my parents. I agreed to study abroad. The person I liked me back, but at that moment, I didn't feel happy. Instead, I felt angry and powerless. In the past 2 years, I gave up all my dignity just to be with her. Facing endless ridicule from classmates. Bringing her breakfast every day. Always the first to appear in front of her when it rained. To hand her an umbrella. My sincere heart received no response. I had cried alone many nights. Then picked myself up again the next day. Chasing after her once more, even just to stay by her side. I gave up a hard-won exchange student opportunity. And I didn't regret it. The conversation in the room hadn't ended yet. I heard Suyuru's voice. He likes me. He won't run away. When he confesses next time, I'll accept. That calm, self-assured tone made me chuckle involuntarily. There won't be a next time. Now I just want to leave. Disappear completely from her world. The moment I opened the door, the chatter in the private room abruptly stopped. Everyone tacitly turned around and started talking about other things, as if they hadn't seen me. Suyuru picked up a glass of wine and joined Lee Juo's game, looking cold and indifferent. She didn't even lift her eyelids. I glanced at her and couldn't help but sigh. What great acting skills. Facing a room full of people ignoring me, I didn't feel the slightest bit upset. I just calmly walked to an empty spot in the corner and sat down. For the next hour or so, everyone was chatting enthusiastically. I sat there alone, scrolling on my phone, like I was completely invisible. In the past, whenever Suyuru appeared, I would always find a way to approach her, trying to start all kinds of conversations to get her attention. Even this birthday party. I found out about it after much digging, then asked a lot of people to help persuade them to invite me. Logically speaking, things that are hard to come by should be treasured more. But seeing my indifferent attitude, it was like I didn't care about her birthday at all. This unfamiliar coldness finally made Suyuru lose her composure. She glanced at me several times. After the birthday song was sung and the cake was cut, it was soon time to give gifts. I waited until everyone had given theirs, then slowly stood up. I pulled a calendar from my bag and handed it over. Everyone present looked at me in surprise, because the calendar was only palm-sized. With just 30 pages in total, it looked incredibly plain and shabby. I didn't care what expressions the others had. I just looked at Suyuru and calmly said, Suyuru, starting today, tear off 1 page each day. When you get to the last page, there will be a surprise. It's a belated birthday gift from me, something I prepared just for you. As soon as I said that, a few of her roommates immediately burst out laughing. They chuckled and said, This your 100th confession or what? You've got real perseverance, huh? Still hanging on after 2 years. You like Euro asterisk that asterisk much. Hearing those comments, Suyuru naturally assumed this was a countdown calendar to my 100th confession. The corners of her lips curved slightly into a smile, but it was quickly suppressed, replaced by a blank expression. I only said that once you confess 100 times, I might consider it. I never said I would definitely agree. I knew they had misunderstood. When the last page is torn off, it won't be the day I confess. It'll be the day I completely disappear from her world. I didn't explain. I just gave a faint laugh. Suyuru, after chasing you for so long and failing to move you, I really want to know, what exactly is your ideal type? After I asked, the whole room went quiet. Everyone looked at her with unreadable expressions. Suyuru stared at me intently, paused for a few seconds, then softly opened her lips. My ideal type is. She had just begun to speak when the tightly shut door was pushed open, drawing everyone's attention at once. with all eyes on him. Chu Musheng walked in holding a beautifully wrapped box, smiling warmly at Suyuru. Happy birthday, Yuru. Suyuru's gaze followed the blessing and landed on Chu Musheng. She raised her finger and lightly tapped the table, picking up where she had been interrupted. My ideal type is of course someone cheerful in personality, with a clean and fresh look like the boy next door kind. Hearing such a flirtatious comment upon entering, Chu Musheng's face quickly turned red. He happily walked over to her side and handed her the gift he had carefully prepared, encouraging her to open it on the spot. All attention quickly shifted away. No one brought up the topic again, watching the two of them surrounded by the crowd. I didn't show any sadness. Instead, I calmly returned to my original seat. All night long, no matter where Suyuru went, Chu Musheng was always by her side. The two of them were laughing and talking, covering each other from drinking games, sharing the same piece of cake. I quietly watched how intimate they were. A flood of memories flashed through my mind. Suyuru may be the school beauty at Qingda, with many admirers, but she had always kept her distance from boys, except one. The only exception was her childhood friend, Chu Musheng, who grew up with her. She would fix his messy bangs, attend and leave classes with him, and bring him water during basketball game breaks. All these special treatments to me felt like sharp needles piercing my heart. But after learning the painful truth, I finally realized, even though Suyuru and Chu Musheng were childhood friends, they were never actually close before. Chu Musheng chased her constantly, but she always ignored him. It wasn't until I showed up that she started intentionally, deliberately, being close with Chu Musheng right in front of me, just to make me jealous, to push me to chase her even harder. So, when I saw Suyuru putting on this performance for me, right in front of my face, I just found it ironic. I set down my wine glass, got up, and went to the restroom. I splashed water on my face, trying to clear my head, then pulled out a tissue from my bag and wiped the water off my face. My vision was blocked. I didn't notice someone had appeared beside me, until I heard Chu Musheng's sarcastic, mocking voice. I realized something was wrong. Jiang Heoken, you've chased Yuru for years, and she's never said yes, yet you still had the nerve to show up at her birthday party. Come on, I'm begging you. She doesn't like you at all. Can't you have a little self-awareness? You're just some cheap loser throwing yourself at her. Chu Musheng looked like a gentleman on the outside, but his words were absolutely venomous. I didn't show even the slightest displeasure at what he said. I just looked at him calmly. Are you done? Chu Musheng hadn't expected me to be this calm. He was caught off guard, but he didn't want to lose face either. He glared at me and said, Of course not. Do you know what people at school say about you? The clingy simp who confessed 99 times. You're still a student at least. Don't you care about your dignity? Anyone with eyes can see Suyuru likes me. So why? Can't you open your damn eyes and see it too? Even as he looked ready to throw a punch, I remained completely calm. I just shifted my gaze from him to behind him and reminded him, before you keep insulting me, you might want to look behind you. Chu Musheng followed my gaze and turned around with a puzzled expression. He immediately saw Suyuru standing outside the door. She must have been standing there for a while. She likely witnessed the entire scene just now. The moment he realized that, his heart started to panic, but he quickly put his gentle mask back on. Gone was any sign of arrogance or aggression. He quickly walked over to her, grabbed her hand, and began explaining frantically. Yuru, it's not what you think. It was Jiang Heoken. He started it. He cursed at me first, but Suyuru didn't seem to care at all. Even though she clearly saw Chu Musheng being abusive, she acted like nothing had happened. She looked up at me, then turned and held Chu Musheng's hand. Her voice was gentle as she said, I believe you. Let's go back. With that, she took his hand and turned back to the private room. Chu Musheng hadn't expected her to react like that, as if she didn't care that he insulted me. He suddenly felt emboldened. He turned back with a smug face, wearing a mocking smile full of ridicule, mocking how I didn't know my place. I lowered my head and walked down the stairs. The stairwell was quiet. Only the sound of my footsteps echoed. In the darkness, The scene from just now replayed in my mind. I let out a cold laugh when she took Chu Musheng's hand just now. Her eyes were blatantly fixed on me, while speaking caring words to Chu Musheng. Honestly, her acting was truly impressive. If I didn't already know her true feelings, I might have actually been fooled again and gotten hurt all over. This kind of thing. It wasn't even the first time it had happened. All these years chasing her, I gave up everything, my pride and restraint, no matter how others mocked or ridiculed me. Even insulting me to my face, I never took it to heart. I just wanted to focus on myself, on achieving what I longed for, and leaving no regrets. That's why I insisted on confessing 99 times. But the person I liked for 2 years, just because she enjoyed being pursued, let all those rumors and insults slide. That kind of hurt was far worse than 10,000 insults. Outside, it was pouring rain. Most taxis had stopped running. A group of us were stuck at the bar entrance. Suyuru called her family's driver, saying she'd take Chu Musheng home. Chu Musheng immediately looked smug again, his eyes darting sideways at me, speaking in a deliberately sharp tone. It's so late, everyone's leaving. Isn't it kind of sad that Jiang Heoken is waiting here all alone? Suyuru took the umbrella handed over by the driver and said indifferently, he has legs, without even glancing at me. She got into the car with Chu Musheng. I watched the sports car disappear into the rainy night. But I didn't mind. I just kept refreshing the ride-hailing app. I waited in the cold wind for over 2 hours. Finally, a driver accepted my request. By the time I got home, it was already 2 a.m. I shook the raindrops off my coat and slowly walked to my room door. Entered the code. As soon as the door opened, the door across the hall opened too. Suyuru stepped out, face cold as ice. Her voice held no warmth. Come back earlier next time. The door was too loud. You disturbed my rest. I looked at the clothes she still hadn't changed out of and understood. I responded half-heartedly with a faint then turned and entered my room, turned on the lights, and closed the door. After I took off my shoes, there was finally a loud asterisk bang asterisk from outside. I didn't respond to it. I took off my coat and turned on the AC, then curled up in a blanket on the sofa. This apartment, I bought it half a year ago. After hearing Suyuru had moved out of the dorms, I bought it on purpose. To chase her, I moved out to just to become her neighbor. I bring her breakfast in the morning and say goodnight in the evening. Every day, I created coincidences just to move her heart, but no matter how caring I was, she always ignored me, rarely responded. It wasn't until I uncovered her secret that I realized she'd been faking indifference all along. Just like tonight, she was already home long ago. She hadn't even changed her clothes because she was worried about my safety. That's why she hadn't gone to bed, so she could see me, yet she still insisted on saying meaningless things. This act of saying one thing and meaning another, I was tired of it. I didn't want to keep playing along. I unlocked my phone and opened the real estate app. I posted the listing for my apartment. Since I've decided to leave, then I'll cut ties completely. The next morning, the agent came to inspect the apartment. Still groggy, I got up to open the door. I gave a quick rundown of the apartment's details. After the viewing, I was about to walk them out when the door across the hall opened. Suyuru was heading out with car keys in hand. She saw a strange woman beside me and instinctively frowned. Who is she? She asked. My sister-in-law, just dropping something off. I lied without changing my expression. The agent beside me looked over in surprise, but he was very professional. He didn't expose the lie. He found an excuse and left first. I went back to my room, changed clothes, and planned to go to school. As I turned the corner, someone was standing in front of the elevator, blocking the way. I turned my head and saw it was Suyuru. It felt a bit strange. Didn't he say he was leaving just now? Why is he still here? Suyuru saw the confusion in my eyes. He spoke a bit awkwardly. I'm taking you to school today. I didn't know why he was suddenly acting like a different person. I shook my head and refused, but he acted like he'd taken the wrong medicine, insisted on giving me a ride. He came up with many excuses, from you're about to be late to it's on the way. He was even about to use environmental protection as an excuse. Unable to argue with him and not wanting to waste time, I agreed. We didn't say a single word on the way. It was extremely quiet in the car. He was used to me chirping in his ear. Seeing me so silent now, Suyuru felt uncomfortable. A trace of unease flashed in his heart. So it wasn't his illusion after all. I really had changed these past few days, and these changes made him inexplicably anxious. When we arrived at school, I just said thanks and walked off ahead. I quickly walked into the school gates, but realized everyone passing by was staring at me. With strange expressions, they were whispering, "That's Jiang Heoken, right? Yeah, that's him. Right. The one trending on the hot search." So embarrassing, hearing these baffling comments. I quickly pulled out my phone, immediately saw a few links sent by friends. I clicked one of them, and found out someone had submitted my confession to Suyuru, to a gossip forum. It even made the trending list, looking at the tag King Hua's clingy simp guy. I was completely stunned. The top post in that tag was the submission. It compiled all of my attempts to chase after her. Every single detail, even the contents of my love letters, were exposed publicly. From a distance, I saw a large crowd near the school bulletin board. It was covered with the love letters I wrote. The crowd was laughing and making comments, always using lines like "lost in your eyes." So cheesy. 99 love letters, all different. This kind of obsessive love is honestly scary. Isn't he supposed to be King Hua's top scholar? Why is he throwing himself at her like that? Hearing these ruthless and mocking comments, my heart sank. I rushed into the crowd, tearing down the letters one by one, until the very last one. Suddenly, I heard Chu Musheng's voice. "Yuru, Jiang Heoken has confessed to you so many times. How much do you actually like him?" Suyuru's voice, as cold and direct as always, answered with one word: 0. With both main characters showing up, and me being publicly humiliated, the crowd's laughter only grew louder and more gleeful. Some nosy people, afraid things wouldn't escalate, mockingly asked, "Jiang Heoken, you've confessed 99 times, and still scored a 0. Shouldn't you keep trying? When's the next confession happening? We'll all come watch and give you tips." I clenched the shredded love letters in my hand. Words rushed to the tip of my tongue. I was about to speak, but when I saw the mocking stares all around me, I swallowed them down. I let out a laugh, raised the love letters high, like I was waving a battle flag, and loudly declared, "The 100th confession will happen in the school's central plaza, 9 a.m., December 3rd. All students are welcome to bring friends and come watch." After I said that, I didn't care about anyone's reaction. I clenched my teeth and walked away with my head held high. I skipped class that morning and went straight home. The faucet gushed water into the basin. I didn't hesitate and dunked my head into it, until my chest began to ache from lack of air. I propped myself up on the sink, gasping deeply for fresh air. The anger made me dizzy, but it cleared my mind. I looked at the face in the mirror that had calmed down, then tore up every single love letter I had written, and burned them into ashes, flushed them all down the drain. On the weekend, the usually silent club suddenly sent out a message, saying we should have a gathering. I happened to be planning to submit my resignation, so I decided to go. But the moment I opened the door, I saw Suyuru, who never attends these events, surprisingly showed up. I didn't look at her at all, pretending she wasn't there, and sat alone in the corner. As soon as they saw me, a few of Chu Musheng's buddies started teasing me, playing good cop, bad cop. Why would Yuru come to something like this? Of course, because Chu makes everything lively. Everyone knows our school belle only listens to him. I ignored their childish antics, just peeled some oranges and started eating. Once everyone arrived, the club president announced the start of the game. I wasn't interested, but got dragged into playing anyway. So, I had to force myself to join in, playing this boring game of truth or dare. After about 7 or 8 rounds, Suyuru finally lost. Everyone shouted excitedly, "School belle Su, let's see what you drew." It was to kiss any male present for 3 minutes. Quick, quick, quick. Who will the school belle choose to take the punishment with her? I knew she wouldn't choose me, and I didn't care who she chose. I just looked down and played with the dice in my hand, and as expected, Suyuru chose Chu Musheng, but she made one request: to turn off all the lights in the room. The room went pitch black. Only the sound of breathing could be heard, and whispers from the other club members now and then. 3 minutes later, the lights came back on. Suyuru sat back down first. Chu Musheng stood frozen in place, looking rather upset. Suyuru didn't kiss him. I glanced at her coldly, then heard the club president announce the next round. Without a word, I casually tossed the 3 dice in my hand. Unfortunately, 3 ones. The lowest score possible. A bet is a bet. Without saying a word, I drew a card from the stack. It was the same card as before, exactly the same punishment. Immediately, everyone's faces lit up. Expressions turned excited. Their eyes flicked between Emmy, Suyuru, and Chu Musheng, back and forth. I pretended not to notice, casually spun the game wheel. It landed on a junior girl sitting across from me. Everyone thought I was going to back out. They all held their breath. But I stood up calmly, walked straight over to the junior, with a tone full of indifference. "Sorry to trouble you." The junior looked shocked and was just about to stand, when Suyuru suddenly stood up too, knocking over her stool. Everyone looked confused. She coldly cut in. "This game is getting exhausting. It's time for a break, isn't it?" She finally spoke. His roommates all chimed in and agreed. The president had no choice but to announce a break from the punishment round. A few girls said they were hungry. Some of the guys in the room were quickly dragged downstairs by roommates to buy some food. They were gone for 20 minutes. Seeing they were still not back, the president didn't want to wait any longer. He announced the game would continue. I put down my phone and looked around. Only then did I realize the junior girl was gone. To be more accurate, all the girls, except for Suyuru, had disappeared. I didn't even have to guess. I knew this was something Suyuru had orchestrated. But I didn't want to give her the satisfaction. So I picked up the 500 milliliters glass in front of me and raised it to the room with a gesture. My chosen partner was gone. So according to the game rules, I would complete the punishment by drinking. After saying that, I tilted my head back and finished the drink without flinching. Suyuru hadn't expected I'd rather drink than choose her. Her expression immediately turned cold as she looked at my quickly flushed face. She clenched the dice in her hand until they cracked. With half the group gone, the game lost its excitement. The gathering ended just like that. I stayed behind, tipsy, until everyone had left. Then took the resignation form from my bag and handed it to the president. I held onto the wall and tried to go downstairs. Just as I reached the stairwell, through my drunken haze I saw Chu Musheng in the distance. I tried to act like I didn't see him and walked past, but he suddenly grabbed my hand. His eyes filled with frustration. When the lights came on, "What did that look you gave me mean?" "I'm telling you, even if Liu Ji didn't kiss me, there's a reason for it. That shows how she really feels." Really feels, I nearly burst out laughing. But I knew that no matter what I said now, Chu Musheng wouldn't hear it. So I nodded and said, "You're absolutely right." After saying that, I tried to pull my hand away and leave, but Chu Musheng just gripped me tighter. He kept cursing and wouldn't let go. The two of us argued. I was already unsteady on my feet. One tug, and I completely lost balance, falling backward. I tumbled down the long staircase. Chu Musheng was startled and lost his footing too. He ended up falling down the stairs with me. Hearing the noise upstairs, a few students who hadn't gone far turned around to check what had happened. Seeing the two of us badly injured, everyone instantly panicked. In the end, it was Suyuru who called for help and got us both sent to her family's hospital. After examination, the doctor said it was a bone fracture. If not treated promptly, there was a risk of disability. From the moment he saw we were injured, his eyes hadn't left me. Looking at my pale face and the sweat dripping nonstop from my forehead, he seemed to feel the pain I was in. It hurt him too. The operating room was ready, but the hospital only had one specialist who could perform this surgery. Suyuru had to decide who would go first. She instinctively looked at me and met my gaze at the exact same moment. In those eyes, there was no more warmth, no more longing, just a lifeless, calm stillness. That look made Suyuru's heart tremble violently. "Miss, please decide quickly. Who should have the surgery first?" I lay pale on the stretcher. And just before I passed out, I heard Suyuru clearly call out the name. "Chu Musheng. Operate on Chu Musheng first." The doctors quickly pushed Chu Musheng into the operating room. And the moment the door closed, I completely lost consciousness. When I woke up again, a full day had passed. I opened my eyes. The first thing I did was reach for my leg. When I felt that my leg was still there, and that I could still feel it, I finally let out a sigh of relief. Tears of surviving a disaster welled up in my eyes. Luckily, I wasn't crippled. My parents rushed over as soon as they got the news. They got me admitted to a VIP ward on the top floor. They took great care of me. 2 hours later, Chu Musheng was admitted to the ward opposite mine. Suyuru personally walked him in. To make it convenient for checkups, the doors to both wards were kept open. I could clearly see what was going on in the ward opposite mine. Chu Musheng was rambling on endlessly. Suyuru kept bringing up all kinds of topics to distract him. The hospital logistics delivered meals. That didn't suit his taste. So she went home herself and made lots of light food for him. When he got bored staying in the ward, she found all kinds of fun and interesting things to help him pass the time. During those 10 days in the hospital, the two of them got so close that even the nurses started gossiping. Everyone was talking about the hospital director possibly getting a daughter-in-law soon. I listened quietly, without getting involved, but deep down I knew Suyuru was doing all this just to show me. After all, I closed that ward door hundreds of times, and every single time, a nurse would show up right after to check in. It was 100% door opening treatment. That couldn't be just a coincidence. On the day of discharge, I ran into the two of them again in the underground parking lot. The moment they saw me, Suyuru immediately helped Chu Musheng, who was in a wheelchair, up and into the car. Through the window, Chu Musheng leaned halfway out, smiling at me insincerely. "Jiang Heoken, I heard you live right across from Yuru's place. Why don't we give you a ride?" I didn't want to respond to him. I didn't even lift my head. I just got in my car directly. When the car reached the apartment building, I declined my parents' help. I went home alone on crutches. The elevator repeated. As soon as we got to the first floor, Suyuru, who was supposed to drive Chu Musheng home, suddenly walked in. We glanced at each other. Neither of us spoke. The elevator stopped on the 17th floor. Suyuru stood at the door, not getting out. I had to hobble around her with my crutch and go out first. I walked slowly, but the person behind me walked even slower. I could feel his gaze was fixed on me the whole time. When I reached the door, I tried to input the password, but the crutch in my hand suddenly fell to the ground. I had to slowly squat down, leaning against the wall. Just as I reached for the crutch, a shadow suddenly fell in front of me. Suyuru squatted down too, maybe intending to help me pick it up. But the moment our eyes met, she pulled her hand back and tied her loose shoelace instead. I let out a mocking smile, picked up the crutch, and slowly stood up to enter the room. I spent a long time recovering at home, and soon it was time for final exams. Although I was about to go abroad, my leg could barely support my weight, so I didn't apply to postpone the exams. I went ahead and took them. There were too many stairs in the lecture hall, and my leg wasn't fully healed, so I sat in the first row of the middle section. Not long after, Suyuru entered, helping Chu Musheng. As soon as he saw me, Chu Musheng immediately acted all dramatic, saying his leg hurt, and he needed to sit in the front row. So Suyuru helped him sit right next to me, and she sat on the seat closest to the wall. The exam started soon after, just as the teacher stepped off the last step. Chu Musheng threw a crumpled piece of paper he had prepared in advance onto my desk across the aisle. My hand paused while holding the pen. Still confused about the situation, I was scolded by the teacher, who happened to turn around. Before the exam, I emphasized repeatedly that poor results were acceptable, but integrity must not be compromised. You can't knowingly cheat. Jiang Heoken, your exam is disqualified. It was only at this moment that I realized what Chu Musheng was up to, but I wasn't willing to suffer in silence. So I stood up immediately and demanded to check the surveillance. Unfortunately, there had been a power outage in the teaching building that morning, so the classroom camera wasn't turned on in time. Looking at Chu Musheng's confident and composed expression, I couldn't swallow this anger. Suyuru was sitting right next to Chu Musheng. He saw everything. The teacher didn't want to wrongly accuse anyone, so he immediately called Suyuru over. The teaching building of Qing University was funded by the Su family. Suyuru doesn't need to please anyone. He's cold, composed, and upright, so his words have always held great weight among teachers and students. After hearing the whole story, Suyuru raised his eyes to glance at me, then calmly said, "It wasn't Chu Musheng who cheated." As soon as he said that, it was almost like a hammer striking me down. Mr. Zhao immediately believed it. He glared coldly at me. "Jiang Heoken, what else do you have to argue? You cheated and still tried to smear your classmate. You're truly incorrigible. Were your past grades also copied? No matter what, this time I will report you to the whole school for public criticism." I stood there, feeling like I had fallen into an icy abyss. I thought in the face of right and wrong, Suyuru would stand by principle. That's why I mentioned his name. But I didn't expect that he would actually lie for Chu Musheng even after witnessing everything. At this point, any explanation was meaningless. I looked deeply at Suyuru, with disappointment in my eyes. Without saying a word, I walked away. Seeing the look in my eyes, Suyuru suddenly panicked. He instinctively chased after me and blocked my way. "Jiang Heoken, I know this was Chu Musheng's fault, but he's thin-skinned. I didn't want people gossiping about him, yet you didn't even say sorry. You only cared about defending Chu Musheng. I even started to doubt the photo I saw that day. Was it just a dream?" I looked at him with a bitter smile, my voice filled with trembling and anger. "So this is your reason for helping him slander me? He can't take the gossip, but I can? Is that it? Suyuru, do you think because I confessed to you 99 times, my face is as thick as a city wall, so strong that I'm immune to any rumors?" Seeing me like this, Suyuru's left eyelid twitched. He grabbed my hand. "That's not what I meant. It's just one exam. You can still make up the credit. In the future, I'll find a way to make up for today. For the injustice you suffered, make it up. But you don't even like me. How are you going to make it up?" My sarcastic tone hit Suyuru straight in the heart. He almost blurted out what he truly felt. "Who said I don't?" As soon as he spoke, he realized something was wrong and quickly stopped himself. "Believe me, wait for the 100th confession. I'll make it up to you then." "Suyuru, are you basically saying you'll accept me then?" The old him would never have shown so many flaws. Now, it's just a moment of lost composure. But I was already heartbroken and tired. I brushed his hand away, lowered my eyes and said coldly, "Tear the calendar properly. Wait for the last day." Watching me pull my hand back, Suyuru was stunned. His tone finally softened a little. 3 days left. I will definitely give you a satisfying answer." 3 days before leaving, the apartment I listed for over half a month was finally sold. The agent came over with the contract. I signed it quickly. I'll be moving out in 3 days. These few days, I'll clean everything out of the house, so the new tenants can move in on time. After the agent noted the date, I walked him to the elevator. As soon as the doors opened, Suyuru came out holding 2 bags. He stared at the agent for a moment, then politely greeted him with a good morning. The agent replied blankly. Once the elevator went down, I turned around to leave. Suyuru suddenly called out to me and handed over one of the bags. "I happened to buy too much. Can't finish it. Want to try some?" I glanced at it. It was my favorite snack as always, beef jerky. The shop is on the east side of the city. A round trip takes more than 2 hours, and there's usually a 1-hour line just to buy it. He purposely went to buy my favorite snack and made up an excuse to give it to me, just to apologize for what happened yesterday. But I didn't need his apology anymore. I said nothing as I took it, then casually tossed it aside once I got home. The bag of jerky drew a perfect arc through the air and landed squarely in the trash bin 2 days before leaving. I went to a print shop, spent a few thousand yuan to print 10,000 cards, each about the size of a palm. I went back to the dorm and asked a few roommates to, on the 3rd, climb to the top of the main building and scatter the cards over the plaza. My roommates had heard about everything that happened recently. When they found out I wasn't giving up, they all started to try and persuade me. Maybe just let it go. Suyuru treated you like that. Why make things harder for yourself? Yeah, he really went too far this time. It's too unfair to your feelings. Even though I've moved on, hearing my friends care about me like that still brought a wave of warmth to my heart. I shook my head. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. You guys just need to scatter them from me. I've already hired a cleaning service to clean up afterward. I wasn't planning to confess. What I really want to do is say goodbye. When they heard that, the guys were all stunned, looking at each other, trying to figure out what I was really up to. I just said thanks again, then turned and left. As my figure gradually faded into the distance, my roommates opened the box and pulled out one of the cards. It had only one sentence written on it. I will never like you again. The day before leaving. After finishing all the formalities at school, I came home and began packing. I had only lived here for half a year, so there wasn't much stuff, but most of it was related to Suyuru. One found a few boxes and threw all those things into them. The moment the boxes landed in the trash, everything between Suyuru and me became the past. In the end, only 2 sets of clothes remained. The shirt he wore the first time we met, and a pair of loose black jeans. I struck a match and burned them. The flames rose with wisps of smoke. Soon, nothing was left but ashes. I stood up and turned around only to see Suyuru not far away, looking at me with a face full of surprise. Are you cleaning out some unnecessary garbage? I replied coldly, then turned and went upstairs. That day, just as the sky was turning light, I was woken up by noise from across the hall. I gradually opened my eyes, picked up my phone and checked the time, then saw a flood of notifications jumping on my screen. It took me a while to realize. All the messages were from a group chat with over 20 people. A year ago, to learn about Suyuru's interest, I had secretly joined the group. I kept forgetting to leave the group. Suyuru didn't know I was in there, and early in the morning, the group chat was buzzing. It was a few of Suyuru's dorm mates chatting excitedly. Yuru's up so early. Don't tell me she was too excited to sleep. Isn't that obvious? She started fussing around since 11 last night. So she's really going to accept Jiang Heoken's confession this time. As I scrolled to that point, my hand paused for a moment, and to my surprise, Suyuru had actually typed a long message. It's not about accepting. We already like each other. Being together is natural. No more questions. Help me choose. Which outfit should I wear today? This one, or this one? She sent dozens of outfit photos. The group instantly exploded. Oh my god. This is serious business. Is this still the cool, aloof campus belle we know? Suyuru, this is the first time I've seen you so into something. Do you really like that Jiang Heoken so much? Amid all the amazement, Suyuru only replied with one sentence. I really do. This life, it has to be him. Seeing that line, I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Leaning against the bed frame, staring at the sky growing brighter outside the window, memories flashed through my mind. Seeing the word like, all I felt was some absurd O. Henry-style twist. An irony. She liked me, so she rejected me 99 times? Let me become a joke in everyone's eyes. Like me, so treated me with indifference. Deliberately got close to other guys just to provoke me. Like me, so twisted the truth and slandered me. Trampled all over my genuine feelings. If that's what she calls love, then I can't afford it. And I don't want it either. The messages in the group were updating faster and faster. Some girls still on campus posted a few photos from the scene. It was only a bit past 7 a.m., and there were already lots of people gathered in the plaza, both students and outsiders. There were teachers and students alike. Some people even started selling bottled water and grilled sausages. So many people came, all to witness my 100th confession. Yuru, hurry up. Don't be late for your big moment. What if the heroine can't even get in? Clearly, watching drama is human nature. I was about to leave the group when I saw a new message from Suyuru to me. I'm heading out now. And I thought, me too. But I'm leaving for good. I was preparing to leave everything behind. Suddenly, I really wanted to see Suyuru's expression when she saw the cards fall on the square, and how she'd feel knowing I was going abroad. What emotions would she show? Unfortunately, I wouldn't be there to see it. From this day forward, Suyuru's life has nothing to do with mine. I slowly got up, changed into a fresh set of clothes, then went to wash up. After everything was done, I took out the milk and bread from the microwave, and while eating, packed the last of my luggage. After packing, the whole house was empty. I turned to look around at the now bare and quiet room, then pulled out my phone and blocked every number and account related to Suyuru. After doing all this, I felt an ease like never before. Dragging my suitcase, I turned and left, heading toward a brand new, brilliant life. There were still 5 minutes until 9 a.m. and the square was already packed wall to wall. Even security had arrived to maintain order. Seeing the massive crowd from upstairs, my roommates were a little overwhelmed, their voices full of amazement and excitement. So many people. Once this happens, it'll spread all over campus for sure. Even better that way. That way when I'm gone, no one can gossip behind my back anymore and say I just left without a word. Everyone chatted excitedly. Before long, it was 8:59. The club president got a message saying I had safely arrived at the airport. He rolled up his sleeves and shouted, "He's arrived. Come on, let's get to work. Those throwing cards, those taking photos, focus up. Make sure he sees this moment before boarding the plane." Just as he finished speaking, the 9 o'clock alarm rang. Two guys took their positions on either side and pushed off stacks of cards that had been placed on the windowsill. With one shove, the white cards flew outward, and instantly, white cards fluttered from the 16th floor rooftop like snowflakes. Twisting through the air, down in the square, a nearsighted student shouted, "It's snowing." Everyone looked up at the sky in unison. As the cards descended closer to the ground, people tiptoed and reached out, trying to grab one, to see what was written on them. And right in the center of the plaza, Suyuru was also gazing upward expectantly. Her dorm mates were stunned by the scene and began exclaiming in amazement. There must be at least 10,000 of these cards. Jiang Haoken really poured his heart into this. Well, look at how famous Yuru is. He had to make a grand gesture to claim her and scare off any rivals. True, but what exactly do the cards say? I've read his love letters before. He writes really well. What if it's 10,000 handwritten love notes? Honestly, wouldn't be surprised. With his patience and dedication, totally possible. Let me grab one and take a look myself. Hearing her friends speak with admiration, Suyuru's heart was full of anticipation too. She reached out and caught one of the cards. Smiling, she flipped it over. But when she saw the words written on it, her expression froze instantly. Her friends leaned in, ready to tease her. But when they saw the words on the card, their eyes widened, and they began to stutter. This can't be real. There must be some mistake. The girls tried to console her, while picking up more cards from the ground to show Suyuru. But the ones they just picked up have the exact same printed message. Jiang Haoken will never like Suyuru again. Now everyone was truly panicking. They quickly grabbed cards from others nearby. But, as they read them, their shock only deepened. How could this be? Wasn't this supposed to be a confession? What the hell is written on these? Is someone messing with us? While they were still grasping for excuses, the crowd had already each caught a card. And someone shouted, "Oh wow. Jiang Haoken will never like Suyuru again." So this wasn't a confession. Damn, we all got tricked into coming here. Just to clarify a breakup? What an elaborate statement. Now the whole campus knows. Great, with Jiang Haoken gone. No more gossip or jokes at our expense. Suyuru's face grew paler with every wave of mockery. She felt like something was choking her. Her heart felt blocked, like she couldn't breathe. Oxygen drained from her brain, leaving only a blank mind. Her hands tightly gripped the cards. Her knuckles turned pale from the force. Her chest heaved with emotion. She lifted her head and looked toward the rooftop, still raining with falling cards, her eyes full of shock and dread. Thousands in the square stood on tiptoe, all wanting to see her reaction. And she didn't disappoint. She threw the cards away and stormed toward the main building. The crowd, eager for drama, rushed after her. After tossing the last batch of cards, the organizers were ready to wrap up. But just as they reached the door, they heard a rumbling noise from below and noticed the elevator still hadn't come up. Something was holding it back. They decided to take the stairs down. But when they reached the 10th floor, they ran straight into Suyuru. She was running up with a few of her friends. Seeing them, she blocked the stairway entrance. Moments later, a huge crowd of onlookers followed behind. The students came up en masse, faced with Suyuru's aggressive energy. The guys didn't flinch one bit. "Isn't this our very own campus goddess? Didn't you say Jang Haeoken wasn't your type? So why are you here in the middle of all this drama?" Hearing their sarcastic tone, Suyuru clenched her fists tightly. Her face immediately turned cold. "You guys did this without permission, didn't you?" Hearing the words "without permission," the three guys chuckled knowingly. "As if we dare." These were printed at great cost by Haeoken himself. He carefully carried them all the way to campus. At best, we're just the delivery guys. Hearing that this really was his doing, the students around started whispering. Didn't Suyuru say she didn't like Jang Haeoken? But now that he's walked away, she looks kind of unwilling to let go. You don't get it. This is just like in our romance novels. The goddess gets pulled down from her pedestal and runs to the crematorium. If you ask me, if she regrets it now, she totally deserves this public embarrassment. What was she doing during the first 99 confessions? Those speculative comments cut deep into Suyuru's heart, like sharp knives tearing through the confidence she had built up over the years. These past 2 years, she thought she knew me completely, like the back of her hand, thought she could easily predict my thoughts and actions, and the truth proved her right. The first 99 confessions all ended just as she expected. She thought the 100th would wrap everything up neatly, that it would be a perfect conclusion to everything between us. But just when she felt most certain, I gave her a fatal blow, in a way that announced it to the whole world. She would never be able to control me like before, pretending to be calm and indifferent, with a look of serenity and ease. But he completely exposed his true nature. He grabbed the stair railing. His voice was hurried and panicked. The others, including the president, looked at his face, with a gloating smile appearing on their faces. He raised his hand and made a flapping wings gesture. The confession is over. Of course, she flew away. Suyuru instinctively felt that he was lying to himself. But when she heard the last 2 words, her heartbeat stopped for a few seconds. What does flew away mean? A bad premonition suddenly surged within her. She pushed aside the boys blocking her view and rushed toward the rooftop. The rooftop was completely empty. There wasn't a soul in sight. Both the stairwell and elevator were packed with people. There was no way he could have gotten down. Did he not come to school today? Upon realizing this, memories started rushing through Suyuru's mind. He arrived at school at 8:30, left home at 8 o'clock, picked out clothes at 7:30. Thinking back from this moment to the last time she saw him downstairs last night, she finally realized the problem. He had planned all of this. Logically, he should have left early to prepare. But since last night, there had been no sound from the apartment next door. Either he left after she did, or he never intended to come to school in person. He spent so much effort to take revenge on her, yet didn't come to witness it himself. Why exactly? Suyuru couldn't figure it out. She held her rapidly beating heart and suddenly felt that something inside her was rapidly slipping away. She was terrified and helpless to stop it. Amuro rushed out and finally dispersed the crowd in the building. Suyulu was surrounded by a few close friends as she came downstairs and immediately saw 7 or 8 sanitation workers were sweeping up paper on the ground. She bent down blankly and picked up a card covered in footprints. When she looked at the writing on it, her feelings changed again. The earlier anger and shock had turned into boundless panic and sorrow. A feeling that things were out of her control and racing in a direction she couldn't predict. Panic, and ahead of her was the fear of an unknown, heavier blow. For the first time, her friends saw that expression on her face. They scratched their heads trying to think of a way to comfort her. It's okay, Yuru. Jiang Heoken pulled this stunt. Clearly, he's still angry about the school announcement last time. Just go back and explain it properly to him. Say everything that's been on your mind. He likes you so much, he'll definitely forgive you. Yeah, he's chased you for 2 years. 99 confessions, right? Just coax him a little and it'll be fine. Although everyone was trying to stay positive, Suyuru's intuition told her. This time was different from all the rest. She couldn't suppress the unease in her heart and didn't want to hear them chattering around her. Frustrated and distracted, she drove straight back to the apartment, wanting to get some answers. At 10:30, she parked and walked to the gate of the complex and saw the janitor cleaning the trash bins. For some reason it triggered a memory of yesterday, when she saw him crouching down burning something. She had felt he was acting strange back then, but didn't ask why. Now she wanted to see exactly what he had burned. But the janitor had already put out a new trash bin and drove away. Suyuru could only take the car with her upstairs. As soon as the elevator opened, she was blocked by several large boxes of luggage. At the door, a young man nearby saw she couldn't get out and quickly apologized, saying he'd moved the luggage. She guessed it was a neighbor who just moved in next door, then remembered his leg injury hadn't healed yet. So she planned to use a reminder to be careful as an excuse to talk to him and have a conversation. But as soon as she got to her door, she noticed the door across from hers was slightly open. She raised her hand and knocked. It was very quiet inside. No signs of anyone. The silence in the room made Suyuru unconsciously furrow her brows. Just as she was about to push the door open, a male voice suddenly came from behind her. Are you the neighbor who lives across the hall? Hello. I just moved into 1705. Please take care of me. 1705 upon hearing those numbers. Suyuru instinctively glanced at the door plaque. The next second, she froze in place like a statue. The young man pushed his luggage over, still enthusiastically introducing himself. But Suyuru didn't hear a single word. She silently turned around, her eyes fixed on him, and pointed at the 805 door plate to her left. 805. A new tenant. What about the old tenant? The guy wiped sweat off his face, his eyes full of excitement. The agent said he moved out this morning. Do you know him? Could you pass me his contact info? He seemed to be in a hurry to leave. The price on this unit was super low. I snatched it like a bandit. I wanted to thank him, actually. Those few short sentences completely scrambled Suyuru's brain. She struggled for a while, then suddenly reacted. She turned sideways and pushed open the half-closed door. The room inside was completely empty. Aside from some basic furniture, not a single personal item remained. It was as clean as a brand new apartment. The young man hadn't noticed that her face was gradually draining of color. He grinned, showing his teeth. Clean, right? The agent said that guy cleaned for 3 days. Since it was hard to move, he ended up throwing away a lot. Suyuru didn't even know how she got home. When she came to her senses, she found herself collapsed at the entryway. Her legs had gone completely numb. Her whole body felt as if she had just been pulled out of water, soaked from head to toe. Her sweat-drenched clothes clung to her icy cold skin, making her shiver uncontrollably. She pulled out her phone and found my WeChat. With trembling hands, she typed a few words. Why did you move away? After pressing send, a red dot appeared on the screen, along with a notification saying they weren't contacts. That little red icon stabbed her eyes and made her freeze for a few seconds. Unwilling to accept it, she stubbornly sent several more messages and got several more of the same alerts in return. Looking at the screen, it was like she was choking. Hu Jian could hardly breathe anymore. She grabbed her neck tightly, her face turning bright red. Just as she was about to pass out, the phone rang. Only then did she let go and answer it. Erpin. But what came through was her roommate's panicked voice. Something's wrong. Jiang Heoken, he went to Italy. Monkey and I were just at the Bolin side ... and we saw his name on the exchange student list. That sentence hit her like thunder and stirred up a massive wave inside Suyuru's heart. She tried to stand up, holding onto the cabinet, but her numb legs wouldn't respond at all. She collapsed straight to the ground, her forehead hitting the corner of the wall and breaking open a bloody gash. Blood gushed out rapidly. From the phone on the floor came chaotic shouting, "Are you okay? We're coming right over." But Suyuru could no longer understand what they were saying anymore. She raised her hand to cover the wound. She only felt like ants were gnawing inside her head, endlessly eating away. The pain from her nerves was unbearable. She curled up into a ball, letting out low and painful groans from her throat. Her vision went completely dark, and just before losing consciousness, her final thought was a line she had seen countless times that day. A line forever etched in her heart: Jiang Heoken will never like Suyuru again. Suyuru was seriously injured, although she narrowly escaped with her life. She still ended up in the ICU. When she finally woke up, she realized it had already been 3 days. A few of her friends were leaning over her bed. They sighed with relief, and then started rambling on about what had happened while she was unconscious. According to what they'd heard, Jiang Heoken had arrived in Italy 3 days ago, but hadn't been able to complete his enrollment. Apparently, after the list was published, someone reported him to the school, saying he had cheated on an exam not long ago, and that he should lose his exchange spot. If the spot is cancelled, he'll most likely have to come back. So don't worry, he's not going to get away. Suyuru's heart suddenly skipped a beat. Her eyes widened in shock. He went to Italy, cheated on an exam, exchange spot revoked, coming back. She hadn't even processed all the information yet, when there was a knock on the door. One of the roommates rushed to open it. The remaining 3 turned to look and saw the renowned Professor Chun from Qingda walk in with a stern expression. He gave a glance at the person in the hospital bed. His naturally imposing presence made it hard to look him in the eye. "You're Suyuru. I heard you were the witness in Jiang Heoken and Chu Musheng's plagiarism case. I'd like to speak with you. May I?" Hearing that, her roommates didn't dare stay any longer and quickly left the hospital room. As the door slowly closed, Suyuru slightly lifted her chin. "Yes, I am," she answered softly. Professor Chun's face immediately filled with anger. His tone grew heavier. "Heoken told me you gave false testimony. This is a serious matter. How dare you falsify evidence? Do you realize that by doing so, you could destroy his future? Because of this false accusation of plagiarism, his exchange student spot will be cancelled. The faculty, to suppress public outcry, is even considering expelling him. Once that decision is finalized, along with the online scandal you caused last time, he'll be ruined for life. He loved you. But tell me honestly, in these past 2 years, has he ever done anything to hurt you? Do you really hate him that much, that you must push him to ruin? If you still have a shred of conscience left, then go to the school and tell them the truth. Otherwise, not just him, but I and the entire design faculty will be destroyed by your lie." Hearing all this, Suyuru felt her head buzzing, her heart filled with panic. All she did was skip his club gathering, refused to choose him. Still angry at him, she lied to Teacher Zhao to make him apologize. She never imagined it would trigger such a huge chain reaction, nor dared to imagine what would happen if everything developed just as Professor Chun predicted. How bad would things end up if she truly ruined his future with his personality? He would probably hate her forever, for lovers to become enemies. That was something Suyuru could never accept, even if it cost her life. She could no longer care about the wound on her forehead. She struggled to get up, determined to go with Professor Chun and explain everything at the school clearly. But just as the two of them stepped outside, they were stopped by medical staff. Several doctors wouldn't allow her to leave. They all tried to persuade her, but she didn't listen to a single word and insisted on returning to the school. Professor Chun had already contacted the head of the winter term department in advance, in front of the dean of the design school and Teacher Zhao. Suyuru pointed out that it was Chu Musheng who plagiarized. Chu Musheng didn't expect her to turn on him. He panicked instantly and hurriedly denied it was him. Even Teacher Zhao was shocked he tried to take back his earlier statement and didn't know who to believe. Suyuru's expression was cold. She glanced at Chu Musheng, who had been silent the whole time, then pulled out her phone and showed a photo. This is a letter personally written to me by Chu Musheng in the past. My family will bring the component over later. You can compare the handwriting on the letter with the note. Hearing this, Chu Musheng's face instantly froze. It became extremely twisted. He staggered a few steps, trembling under the stern gaze of several leaders. Shaking nonstop. Yuru, I'm a stranger to you. Did you forget we grew up together? This matter is already over. Why are you lying? Suyuru looked at the evidence but walked away, seeing him still trying to deny it. A trace of disgust flashed in her eyes. I never liked you. It was just an act before. Now I don't want to act anymore. Of course, I won't protect you again. Since you did it, you must take full responsibility for your actions. As soon as she finished, the Su family brought over the component. After comparison, the handwriting on the note was indeed Chu Musheng's with misconduct in style. A meeting was immediately held. It was decided to inform the entire school to clarify the facts. Because of the negative impact caused, Chu Musheng was expelled from school, and the incident was recorded in his file. When everything was settled, it was already dark. Suyuru walked out supporting herself on the wall and called out to Professor Chun. Professor Chun, you know about everything that happened here. Although the matter was resolved perfectly, Professor Chun was still angry. He still didn't like him. He was about to be expelled. How could I not know? Did you hit your head or something? After being scolded like that, Suyuru felt even worse inside, but he still wanted to explain and resolve it. Now that everything is solved, will he come back? Professor Chung gave him a side glance. His tone was full of arrogance. This spot. There's only one in the entire Design Institute. Heoken earned it with his own abilities. He'll study in Italy for 3 years. When he comes back, the future is bright. Why would he come back? Besides, with people like you at Qingda, he's better off staying away from that mess. If I had known he foolishly had a thing for someone like you, I would have talked to him seriously about choosing the right person. He should have opened his eyes. Meanwhile, when I received Professor Chun's call saying he was safe, I was sunbathing by the sea. I don't know how the professor got Suyuru to tell the truth, and I didn't want to ask. I simply expressed my gratitude to the professor. Professor Chun reminded me of a few things, then rushed off to a meeting. I let the sea breeze blow, took a sip of the juice next to me, and leaned back on the beach chair, feeling carefree. 3 days ago, I arrived in Italy. I originally planned to complete the enrollment process directly, but then the school called back to China and suddenly notified me that there was an issue with my spot, so it couldn't be processed for now. I asked my roommate and found out someone secretly reported me, though I explained the situation to Professor Chun and asked if he could help. Even though Professor Chun is a top name at Qingda, I knew this kind of thing would be hard to clear up. I had already prepared for the worst. Honestly speaking, ever since meeting Suyuru, my ability to handle pressure has clearly leveled up. Now, even in the face of possible expulsion, I could take it calmly. I didn't let it bother me. I even had the mood to book a plane ticket overnight to take a short vacation by the Aegean Sea. Now that everything is resolved, I was fully relaxed, thinking about which day to go back to finish the pending procedures. Just as I was flipping through tickets, a message suddenly popped up in the dorm group chat. It said Suyuru just came to the dorm looking for us. She said she wanted your contact info. She said she wants to apologize, but we're not falling for that. Don't worry, we didn't give her a single digit. You have no idea how worn out he looks now. He even has bandages on his head. We heard he was in the ICU a few days ago. Talk about karma. Serves him right, seeing those comments full of sass. I instantly pictured the scene where Yuru asked for my new number and got turned down. A small smile tugged at my lips. I hummed a tune and sent a big red packet in the group chat. Thanks, everyone, for helping me these past few days. The issue has been resolved smoothly. Once the 3-year period is over, I'll treat you all to a meal when I return, to thank you properly in person. Knowing how generous I always am, my roommates didn't hesitate and accepted the red packet. I was also really happy to have such great roommates and teachers. After booking the next available flight back to Milan, I stretched and stood up, walking across the soft sand toward the hotel. Waves kept rolling ashore behind me. A seagull perched on the sun umbrella. The warm sunlight poured down, making everything feel cozy. It really was a rare, beautiful day. This time, the enrollment process went smoothly. No issues came up at all. Looking at the official documents with stamps and my newly issued student ID, I showed a satisfied expression. The staff assisting me asked if I would stay in the dorm or find an apartment on my own, since I'm not too comfortable with the chaos of student dorms. I had my family buy a small apartment near campus before I even came here, so I took my luggage and headed there right away. After arriving at the place, I looked at the stairs in front of me and tried lifting the heavy suitcase again. I let out a long sigh. Just as I was wondering whether to pay someone for help, a pretty girl suddenly spoke up from the side. I looked over in response and saw a young blonde beauty with blue eyes. She asked me in English if I needed help. I quickly nodded. The gorgeous girl helped me lift my luggage, and we went up the stairs. She chatted with me casually as we walked. When we reached the apartment door, we had just finished introducing ourselves. I sincerely thanked her for her help. She showed me her red palm and jokingly said, "Just a thank you might not be enough. If it's okay, could you give me your business card?" I froze for a moment when I heard her request, but quickly reacted and started digging through my bag. After searching for a while, I couldn't find any business card. I could only apologize with an embarrassed smile, but the beautiful girl didn't mind at all. She somehow pulled out a pen and stretched out her hand toward me. "Can you write your number on my hand?" I hesitated for a few seconds, but eventually took the pen, and on that slender, fair hand, I wrote a long string of digits. After moving into the new apartment, I spent a few days setting it up. Finally, it felt like home. That night, I got a notification. All the exchange students had completed registration. Tomorrow, a welcome ceremony would be held in the auditorium. I noted the time down and headed out early the next day. Over the past few days, I had wandered around campus when I had time, but the campus was so big, and all the buildings looked similar. I still ended up getting lost. With time running out, I was just about to ask someone for directions when my phone suddenly rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I thought for a few seconds, then decided to answer. A familiar voice came through the speaker, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't place it. Just then, someone tapped me on the shoulder from behind. I turned around instantly and I saw the gorgeous girl Alex who had helped me a few days ago. She smiled and greeted me, still holding her phone to her ear. That's when I realized it was her number calling me. My face lit up with surprise. We high-fived each other. Alex asked why I looked so lost. I honestly told her about the trouble I was in. When she heard I was looking for the auditorium, she immediately said she was heading there too, and offered to guide me. I didn't doubt her. The two of us wandered through the maze-like campus, chatting and laughing along the way. After about 10 minutes, Alex pointed ahead and told me we had arrived. I took out my phone to check, and it was exactly the same building as in the campus map shared by alumni. I quickly waved to Alex to thank her. The welcome ceremony lasted 2 hours. By the time I came out of the auditorium, my back was sore. I was thinking about where to have lunch. Suddenly someone jumped in front of me. It was Alan, smiling and greeting me. He asked what my lunch plans were. I was still stressing over it. He noticed my hesitation and cheerfully recommended a restaurant to me, then invited me to join him. I agreed to go and followed him out of the campus. When we arrived at the restaurant, I realized it was a Chinese restaurant. A hint of surprise flashed in my eyes. "You want to eat Chinese food? Are you okay with that? I heard you guys don't usually adapt well to the food here. I'm hoping today will be an enjoyable dining experience. I also want to try Chinese food. That's why I picked this place." I didn't expect him to be so thoughtful, and I didn't want to reject his kindness. Smiling, I said, "Sure, let's go with this place. I guess I'm half the host here, so let me take care of this meal. Hopefully I can give you a good introduction to Chinese cuisine." We chatted as we walked into the restaurant. We found a seat and sat down. I held the menu and started chatting. He seemed very interested in the dishes. I introduced each one to him. Then I ordered 5 dishes, because of his lively yet polite personality. The meal turned out to be truly pleasant. We chatted about cultural differences between East and West, and also talked about some of the funny things that had recently happened at school. We quickly became close. After lunch, Alex walked me back to my apartment. As we said goodbye, he looked a bit reluctant. Very politely, he asked if he could invite me for afternoon tea this weekend. The weekend came with beautiful weather. I gladly accepted the invitation. We chatted leisurely at a garden cafe. A group of white doves flew by the lake. One feather gently landed on his hair. When Alex saw it, he stood up with a smile, trying to help me remove it. We were very close to each other, and from afar, it probably looked quite intimate. I lifted my eyes full of joy. And just as I said thanks, I glanced to the left. And my expression froze. Standing at the entrance was a woman with bandages on her forehead, looking completely exhausted and haggard. She looked an awful lot like Suyuru. Before I could get a good look, the woman had already stormed toward us. She lowered her bloodshot eyes, glaring down at the table full of pastries. Her gaze shifted back and forth between us. Then she angrily demanded to know who he was. Hearing that familiar voice, I finally confirmed that it was Suyuru. I didn't know how she found out I was here, but I wasn't surprised by her appearance. I knew she'd come after me to Italy eventually. After all, in Suyuru's eyes, I was an easy target, easy prey. She would never let me escape from right under her nose. I had already prepared myself for this reunion. So, when faced with her nasty attitude, I stayed perfectly calm. Does my new friend have a problem? Friend? What friend? Girlfriend, right? The last few words, Suyuru nearly growled, clenching her teeth in rage. She never expected that, after dragging her injured body and flying all this way, hoping to explain everything honestly to me, she would instead walk in on me on a date with another woman. Only a few days abroad and already found someone new? Weren't you into her for 2 years? Didn't you say after 99 rejections, you still wouldn't give up? Didn't we agree we'd be together on the 100th try? Why would you go back on your word now? Realizing this, the fire in Suyuru's chest burned even hotter. Her tone was full of heartbreak and pain. You forgot. I didn't even give her the chance to bring up the past. I cut her off directly. Chasing you wasn't exactly a proud moment. So what if I forgot? Shouldn't I forget? Other than your looks, you don't really have anything special. I'm not into you anymore. Do I need your permission if I want to try something different? Those few sentences left Suyuru completely speechless. She looked at me in disbelief, eyes full of doubt and shock. Heioken, what on earth have you been through these days? I thought we agreed I'd live well these few days. Eat well, drink well, sleep well. Thanks to you, I even had time to go travel. But now that you've shown up out of nowhere, I'm actually annoyed. If you understand what I'm saying, then please leave this cafe. To be honest, you're disturbing my meal with this lovely lady. When I said that, my tone was light and casual, my expression calm and justified. But that calm, detached attitude made Suyuru's already pale face turn even whiter. That's when she finally realized everything had truly slipped out of her control. Overwhelmed with emotion, she suddenly grabbed my hand. He began to explain incoherently. I was wrong before. I shouldn't have taken advantage of your sincerity. I'm sorry, Heioken. Please forgive me. Give me another chance, okay? In my eyes, his apology lacked any sincerity. I was rejected publicly 99 times. And now he thinks one sorry will make it all okay. Wishful thinking. Daydreaming. Looking at his slightly trembling hands, I frowned, my tone filled with sarcasm. I can't afford the school beauty's apology. Rest assured, we're strangers from now on. And you don't need to worry about me clinging to you. Seeing the firmness in my eyes, Suyuru knew I wasn't joking. She panicked deeply. Her hands involuntarily gripped the brush, making me frown. Who didn't understand our conversation, initially thought we were just friends chatting. But sensing the tension, he quickly got up, trying to help me get away. This action, to the bewildered Suyuru, felt like provocation. Without thinking, she slapped away Alice's hand. Alas staggered back a few steps. Suyuru gave him a cold glare and tried to drag me away. He steadied himself against the wall. Seeing my resistance, he immediately rushed forward again. and slapped Suyuru right across the face. The two of them instantly got into a fight. The once peaceful garden was thrown into chaos. Tables and chairs were overturned, a complete mess on the ground. Even the nearby potted plants were knocked over. Many guests, fearing being caught up in it, rushed out the door. The shop owner upstairs immediately called the police. Since it was in the city center, the police arrived quickly. They pulled the two furious people apart and took them both to the police station. The bandage on Suyuru's head was torn off, revealing a hideous wound. The wound made the police visibly uneasy. They instinctively assumed Alas was bullying a patient. Alas tried hard to explain, but the injured Suyuru wasn't backing down either. She insisted he started it. They argued for a long time. The police were on the verge of losing their hearing, and still couldn't figure out who was at fault. Left with no choice, they had to seek a third party, the only eyewitness at the scene. "Sir, could you please describe what happened at the scene?" Upon hearing this question, both of them turned around sadly. Their anxious eyes immediately locked onto me. From the moment they started fighting, I had already moved aside to avoid getting caught in the crossfire. I hadn't even said a word to stop them. Just watched as they vented their anger on each other. Now, unable to stay uninvolved, I didn't hesitate. I raised my hand and pointed at Suyuru. I didn't even blink. She was the one who pushed first. Upon hearing that, Suyuru froze in place, unable to believe I would point the finger at her. She looked directly at me, her voice trembling. "I only pushed him." He clearly threw the first punch. "Heoken, why?" Her words suddenly stopped. A flash of realization crossed Suyuru's mind. In an instant, she understood why I said what I did. I was taking revenge. I wanted her to know what it felt like to be wronged and blamed. Realizing this, she couldn't say another word. Her chest tightened, and she could barely breathe. The police didn't understand what she said in Chinese, and asked me, David, to translate, but I immediately distanced myself from her. I was just dining with him. She barged in and started causing trouble. She ignored my objections and tried to drag me away. Then she pushed someone. That's why they started fighting. The last bit of hope in Suyuru's heart was completely shattered as well. She opened her mouth, her voice hoarse and powerless. "You'll never take my side again, will you?" I glanced at her in disdain, let out a cold laugh. "I'm an honest person. I stand with the truth." Suyuru still wouldn't give up. She asked again, "What if he had pushed me first today? Would you still tell the truth?" "Do you even need to ask? We're not relatives or even close friends." Paris is young and sensitive. Of course I'd side with my friend. After saying that, I didn't bother to see her reaction. I turned and walked away. With the testimony, plus the quickly retrieved surveillance footage, the truth soon came to light. Suyuru was detained for causing trouble as a foreign national. I waited for Alas to be released and apologized to him. Again and again, he waved it off, not caring about the minor injuries. Instead, he said our date had been interrupted and wanted to meet again next week. I thought it over carefully. Although Alas is indeed good-looking, today's incident showed he might lack maturity. I knew Suyuru wouldn't let this go easily, and I didn't want to drag him into it, let alone end up in the police station again. I could tell he had feelings for me. But now, I was no longer acting on impulse. So in the end, I declined. Suyuru pulled a lot of strings before finally managing to bail herself out, wandering aimlessly through the streets. She didn't know where to go. Every time she thought about everything that had happened recently, her heart would ache. It felt like it was being roasted over fire. A tormenting pain, overwhelming regret surged in like a tide, completely drowning her. She desperately wished to return to the moment of my 99th confession, to do it all over again. If only she had said yes to me on the spot and expressed her feelings clearly, none of the chaos that followed would have happened. I wouldn't have given up on her, and we could have ended up together. But the cold wind and rain of the night shattered her fantasy. Looking at the continuous drizzle, she finally realized things had reached the point of no return. Even so, She still didn't want to give up. She had secretly loved me for 2 years, waited for 2 years, and couldn't accept seeing her hopes vanish. She swore to find a way to win me back. Just like I had chased her, using 100 different gestures to earn my forgiveness. Just once. One chance was enough. For the next half-month, I didn't see Suyuru again. Life returned to normal. Alas asked me out to more times later on. After I declined, things just faded away between us. I didn't feel sentimental over that brief romance. With normal socializing and studies, life felt fulfilling again. Living abroad, and knowing a bit of cooking. I quickly blended into the circle of international students. Just as I was about to completely forget Suyuru, she suddenly appeared again, with several cars full of roses and balloons, blocking me at school. Facing curious stares from all directions, I was honestly at a bit of a loss for words. Suyuru didn't care how awkward it looked. She seized the moment and poured out all the words she had kept inside. Heyoken, if I chase you 100 times too, would you give me another chance? If I had heard those words a few months ago, I probably would have cried from how touched I was. But now, I didn't feel a thing. In fact, I even got goosebumps all over. What a cheesy scene. What cringe-worthy lines. Was I out of my mind back then? To actually make those public confessions so many times. Thinking back on the past, I didn't even feel regret in my heart. Just a sense of secondhand embarrassment. If I had the chance to travel back in time, I would do everything to stop myself. The me who fell in love with Suyuru at first sight, I would expose her true colors immediately, and never stay foolish for the whole years. Over 700 days wasted on someone who wasn't worth it. What a shame. I was still lost in those thoughts, and didn't even hear what she was saying. She waited for a long time, but got no reply. Suyuru grew increasingly uneasy. She became visibly nervous, looking around frantically, wondering if she had done something wrong. But after checking herself, she couldn't find any mistakes. All she could do was look at me nervously. But just as she lowered her gaze, I immediately looked away from her. I turned around and waved toward the distance, my tone filled with cheerful surprise. Lily, Song Jingyan, where are you guys going? Following my gaze, she finally realized I was greeting someone else. My obvious disinterest made Suyuru feel like she had fallen into an ice pit. Her face turned completely pale with embarrassment. She forced out a few words through clenched teeth, trying to regain my attention. Heyoken before she could finish. That girl named YANDERE walked up to me. Her tone was very friendly and familiar. We're planning to go camping. Heyoken, want to join us? The weather was nice, and I had no weekend plans. And there was also this awkward situation in front of me. I had no reason to say no, so I readily agreed. Song Jingyan had expected me to say yes, and casually reached to take the bag from my hand. I didn't resist, and directly handed the bag over to him. Smiling, I asked about his plans for the evening. Neither of us gave Suyuru a second glance. We just continued chatting and joined the camping crew, watching the group walk farther and farther away. Suyuru's face became deathly pale. She clenched her fists tightly. She looked at YANDERE with eyes full of unwillingness and overwhelming jealousy. Suyuru followed us, all the way to the outskirts, separated by a river. She could clearly see everything happening on the other side. 7 or 8 international students were having a BBQ together, chatting, partying, playing games. Everything was lively, but she couldn't blend in. All she could do was watch from afar, and the more she looked, the more suffocated she felt. No matter what I did, that girl named YANDERE was always by my side. The distance between us never exceeded 10 steps. In fact, we got closer and closer. It was a level of intimacy different from anyone else. Suyuru watched, eyes burning with envy. She wished she could just rush over and drag me away. But deep down she knew, if she actually did that, she would definitely make me angry. She didn't want things between us to get even worse. So she couldn't afford to add fuel to the fire. She had to swallow all those burning, conflicting emotions in her chest, and told herself to hold it in. She endured like that for 6 hours. As night slowly fell, a bonfire was lit on the opposite side, and the party continued. It was incredibly lively. Maybe it got too noisy, so I left on my own and headed to the riverside, just to enjoy the breeze. Suyuru seized the opportunity and came to my side. She stopped me. Heoken, I have something I want to tell you. I was in a good mood today, but I still didn't really want to see her. So my tone wasn't exactly kind. Sorry, but I don't really want to hear it, I said, turning to leave. Suyuru panicked instantly. She grabbed my hand. Eyes full of desperation, just give me a few minutes. Heoken, I've been wanting to say these words for a long time. At that, I finally looked up and glanced at her. But my expression was rather subtle. A long time ago. What kind of words? Don't tell me it's the classic I fell for you 2 years ago nonsense. In the end, my voice already carried a mocking tone. Suyuru looked like she was struck by lightning. She froze completely. She never expected to hear from my mouth the secret she thought she had hidden so well. I didn't care how she felt. The sneer on my face only grew deeper. Suyuru, think about it. If anyone else had said those things, not just me, would you believe it? Even if it were you yourself, could you believe it? Who can hide a crush for 2 years without a single slip? Who would reject 99 confessions from their crush just to satisfy their own pride? And who would, in the face of every hardship and danger, push the one they love to the opposite side every single time? Is that love? Sounds more like deep hatred to me. Hearing my mockery, Suyuru only heard roaring in her ears. Her mind completely blank. She tried her best to deny it all, but in the end couldn't even form a counter-argument. All she could do was say something weak and feeble. It's not like that, Heoken. I really do like you. Everyone around me knows that. They can all vouch for me. Well, since I didn't know, what does it matter who you like? From my point of view, the person you liked was Chemushang all along. You should go confess to him. Show him your loyalty. You two are such a great match. Frankly, you've both disgusted me from start to finish. The undisguised contempt on my face was the final straw for Suyuru. Her body trembled uncontrollably, but she still wouldn't let go, stubbornly trying to make me stay. But I had no patience left to keep arguing with her. He pulled his hand away and turned to leave. The moment our hands separated, he felt as if he was about to lose everything. A dull pain surged in his heart. All strength left his body in an instant. He staggered like he was about to fall. I skillfully ignored it, walked briskly back into the crowd, not looking back even once. I thought once everything was said and done, Suyuru would give up, but he quickly realized this guy's brain couldn't process human words. Nothing I said mattered. In the following months, every time I went out, I'd see him within 20 meters without fail. Every few days, he'd bring some gadget he tinkered with and present it to me, saying it was another confession attempt. By the third time, I'd lost count. Faced with his stubborn and obsessive behavior, I always reacted with indifferent detachment. If I could pretend not to see it, I did. If I couldn't, I called security, had them escort him out for disturbing the peace. This back and forth made Suyuru known throughout the school. And so was his relentless pursuit. Wherever he went, people would whisper and point, but he didn't care. He only followed my shadow. He believed if he kept going, he would one day move me. But reality was far harsher than he imagined. I didn't show a single sign of being touched. In fact, right in front of him, I accepted a gift from another girl. I was very handsome, had a great personality, and came from a wealthy family. So whenever I appeared, I attracted everyone's attention. I was never short of admirers. Before, to reassure him, I'd firmly reject every girl who approached me, devoted myself entirely to him. But now, I turned no one away. As long as it wasn't him, I accepted every bouquet. I would always smile and thank them one by one, as if I was deliberately provoking him. Suyuru could only watch helplessly as I got closer and closer to the people around me, unable to do anything. Between us, we were just ordinary classmates from the beginning. He had no right to interfere with my social life. That was something I told him myself. After he drunkenly lost control and punched a girl who gave me flowers, I slapped him across the face and said it to him clearly. As time passed, the slap might have lost its sting, but those words were branded onto his heart, like a noose hanging above his head, like a needle piercing through his soul, etched into his bones. Impossible to forget. Little by little, Suyuru got used to seeing me being adored. Surrounded like the moon among stars, he had no choice but to admit I was right. I was never his possession. After being rejected time and time again, he slowly became numb. No matter what hurtful words I said, or what kind of looks I gave him, he no longer felt any pain. He counted from 1 to 50. From winter to spring, then to early summer. He thought life would just keep going quietly like that. From 50 to 100, maybe even to the 101st time. Suyuru never planned to give up. Just when he thought he had truly let go of everything, something changed. I showed up holding another woman's hand in front of him. Smiling, I told the others she was my girlfriend. In that moment, Suyuru felt like the sky was falling. He had thought I was just playing around those girls, putting on a show for his sake. He never imagined I'd actually say yes to someone else. And when that day arrived in front of his eyes, his blood surged with fury. He instantly lost all reason. He rushed straight toward me, trying to get answers. But before he could get close, he was stopped by the patrolling security guards, separated by a wall of people. His eyes were red with emotion, with life and death desperation. He asked, "Why?" My gaze paused on him for just a second. I replied calmly, "I'm young and rich, with loads of free time. What's wrong with dating beautiful women? I tried loving you." Suyuru fell into a slump for a long time after that, drinking alone at bars, getting wasted night after night. No one was there for him. Every morning, when he woke, he'd look at the empty room around him and fall into his spiral of inescapable sorrow. Alone in a foreign land, with no family, no ties, the pain of unrequited love, all became thorns stuck deep in his heart. Sometimes, drunk enough, he would feel a sudden rush of recklessness. He wanted to find me and beg me to break up, but every time he got close to me and saw me holding my new girlfriend's hand, smiling happily, he lost all courage to take another step. Suyuru had known me for 2 years, but had never seen such joy on my face, because the days we were together weren't even close to normal. To be honest, they were painful days, the kind you'd rather never remember. If just seeing me happy with someone else hurt him that much, then what must I have felt watching him with Chu Musheng? Now, finally, Suyuru could truly understand that feeling. But it was already too late. He ignored the advice of friends and family, insisting on staying in Milan, chasing after some closure. Each day dragged on endlessly, filled with self-inflicted pain. When the summer heat finally faded, Suyuru finally heard the news of my breakup. At first, he didn't believe it, until he heard it repeated again and again. Only then did he dare to let out the joy that had been suppressed deep in his heart. He finally released those emotions, smiling as he came to find me, hoping to comfort me. But once again, things didn't go as he expected. I didn't show a hint of sadness. The way I looked at him was no different from a few months ago. Like I was looking at empty air. The smile froze on Suyuru's face. He cautiously asked me if I had been hurt. That relationship, to me, was purely based on attraction. I was simply drawn to that beautiful woman's looks. That's why we dated for a few months. Now, after seeing her face so often, I felt aesthetically tired. And since she was heading back home, I took the opportunity to break up. Did I have real feelings? Yes, a bit. But not that much. So other than a bit of melancholy at first, I got over it quickly. So, when I heard Suyuru suddenly ask something like that, I was briefly speechless. I stared at him for a moment, dumbfounded, then put on a very polite smile. It was an amicable breakup, mutual consent. What grievance could there possibly be? Hearing that, Suyuru felt slightly relieved, only to be choked the next second by my cold comment. Even if I had suffered more than this, what's that compared to everything I went through those 2 years? Weren't you the one who witnessed it all? So why act all sympathetic like some fake saint now? Those last few mocking words made Suyuru snap. He tried to explain, but I didn't give him the chance. The things back then I can explain them, Heyoken. Alright, enough. I'm tired of hearing it. Suyuru, stop acting in front of me, okay? I can no longer appreciate your 3 parts aloofness, 3 parts heartlessness, and 4 parts cluelessness. If you're feeling lovesick, just go back home. Go find Chu Musheng and those sisters of yours, alright? They'd definitely be happy to support your show. Just a few words left Suyuru blushing with shame. He had no more courage to speak. I pushed him aside and walked straight toward the teaching building. Now that the dating show was over, it was time to focus on my studies. After all, I promised Professor Chun that I'd achieve something and return home in gratitude. After everything that's happened, Suyuru was no longer shaken by just a few of my harsh lines. He even picked himself back up, preparing to confess again. From the 50th to the 99th, from late summer to deep winter. He crafted confessions with brave and dazzling gestures, fireworks bursting brightly in the sky, even drones flying across Milan with messages. I didn't react at all. I even felt a bit relieved. Relieved that people around me had started calling me by my English name. Now, everyone just used my English name. And very few people knew that I was the one being confessed to. By now, Suyuru had run out of new confession ideas. He had exhausted all his tricks. After all, none of the first 99 worked on me. He truly had no more options left. Finally, with a friend's suggestion, he came up with one last idea. For the 100th confession, he chose the school's little garden. He laid out a huge domino setup in the garden. Made from bones, it recreated the scene of our first meeting. He hung star-shaped lights in the trees, prepared to light candles all over the garden at night, to take me back to the beginning, to get me there. Suyuru asked many people for help, and prepared dozens of backup plans. This time, he was determined to show me that he truly fell for me at first sight, and that now, he was sincerely sorry and full of regret. Everything was ready, except for one unexpected twist. The scheduled time arrived, but the main character didn't show up. Even the people he asked for help couldn't find me. All the backup plans he prepared fell apart. Seeing all the hard work and surprises on the verge of failure, his efforts nearly going to waste, Suyuru completely lost control. He acted like a madman, driving everywhere he could think of, searching desperately. At 9 o'clock, the alarm went off. The dark forest was instantly lit up by lights. Countless balloons floated into the air. Petals fell from the sky. Romantic piano music echoed through the forest like feathers in the wind. The soft sound of clattering echoed endlessly. It was the dominoes falling one by one. The moment stretched like eternity for over 10 minutes, until the very last tile fell. All the candles lit up in that instant. The entire place was illuminated, revealing a vivid image of dancing swans on the ground. Every surprise had gone off perfectly, yet Suyuru felt as if all the strength in his body had been drained. He held onto a flower rack for support, his forehead covered in sweat. His eyes had lost all light, because to his right, where he had reserved a space for the main character, there was no one. I didn't come to witness his 100th confession, just like he hadn't shown up to my 100th farewell. Oh no, correction, my final farewell. Suyuru knew that I had seen through his intentions and had deliberately vanished without a trace, and that was exactly what had happened. When everything had settled down, his phone suddenly rang. It was a call from an unfamiliar international number, but the moment he picked up, he immediately recognized the voice on the other end. He heard the crashing waves and a few soft chuckles. I heard you were planning your 100th confession tonight. Unfortunately, I'm not there right now. Really, sorry about that. Suyuru's heart, which had long turned to ashes, flickered back to life upon hearing that familiar voice. He swallowed down the pain and bitterness, and replied in a calm voice, pretending nothing was wrong. It's okay, just hearing from you makes me really happy. As long as you're willing to call me, I can prepare for the 101st confession. There was a faint hope in his voice, as if he had already started, dreaming that I had forgiven him. I didn't want to create that illusion. I looked at the surging sea before me, and the warm sunlight shining on me. My tone carried a bit of joy. That's not necessary. I only called today to tell you two things. Suyuru's throat bobbed slightly. Her hand gripping the phone tightened. A glimmer of light flickered in her eyes, not knowing if it was sudden hope or the flickering uncertainty of candlelight. The first thing is just a kind reminder. It's winter now. The weather is dry. If you're done playing, put out all those candles in the garden. Don't let a fire start. Hearing this, Suyuru looked up and saw a dry leaf slowly falling, spinning as it descended. The second thing is some good news. I'm in a relationship again. This girlfriend. She's even prettier than the last one. So, your confessions can stop at the 100th time. A few simple words fell into Suyuru's mind and echoed countless times. For a moment, it was like he was under a spell. Those few sentences playing over and over again, brainwashed as a sharp pain pierced his forehead. The intense pain left him completely powerless. With a smack, the phone slipped from his hand and hit a candle holder. Unfortunately, for easier arrangement and storage, all the candle holders were tied together with threads. One candle fell, pulling the others down with it. The blazing flame pounced on the scattered dry leaves and feathers. Then it spread to the wooden dominoes. The east wind raged. Within a few breaths, the fire had spread wildly through the garden. The firelight was reflected in Suyuru's eyes. The chill on his body was also driven away by the warmth, but he made no move to escape or call for help. He stood like a statue, becoming part of the garden itself. An entire night passed. The trees in the garden were almost all burned. The only fortunate thing was that no one was harmed. When preparing this surprise, to keep it secret, Suyuru paid to have everyone in the surrounding area cleared out. When the accident happened, he was the only one nearby. Firefighters arrived in time and rescued him just as he was about to pass out from smoke. Although he was lucky to survive, the consequences of his reckless behavior could not be erased. The fire caused outrage among the university authorities. They were firm in their stance to hold someone accountable. As the prime suspect, Suyuru was arrested and detained by the police. The Su family was frantic when they heard the news, pulling every connection to try and save him. But this was an international case. Suyuru had no way to walk away unscathed. In the end, the Su family had to sacrifice more than half their assets and promised to compensate the university tenfold. Only then did the university relent. Due to the severe impact caused, Suyuru spent 6 months in prison. He was blacklisted by the European Union and deported. He was permanently banned from entry. As soon as he got out, he was taken to the airport to be sent back to his country. Looking around at the people in summer clothes, Suyuru, still dazed like from a dream, finally began to feel a bit more clear-headed. It was summer already. 5 months had passed. I hadn't visited him even once. Realizing this, his heart filled with complicated emotions. He couldn't tell if it was disappointment or sorrow. The future is long. There will be chances to meet again. Suyuru could only comfort himself this way. But just as he turned around, he saw me walking out of the arrival gate. After not seeing each other for months, there wasn't a trace of fatigue on my face. All you could see was a smile that curved even my eyes. What hurt Suyuru the most wasn't the smile on my face, but the woman whose hand I was holding. Back in prison, he once asked a few visiting friends to find a way to bring him a photo of my girlfriend. Although he only saw her through the window once, Suyuru still remembered that face. But the woman standing next to me now was not the one in his memory. For a moment, he couldn't tell if he remembered wrong or if his friends got it wrong. Just then, I looked up and saw him. In a rare moment of enthusiasm, I greeted him. Then, straightforwardly, I told him the truth. Long time no see. I just got back from a trip to Germany. You're already out. Time really flies. Let me introduce you. This is my new girlfriend, Lile. After returning to China, Suyuru managed to get someone to send me a message. He asked me whether I had been playing with him or if I had ever been sincere. I didn't reply to him. By now, I had completely seen through who Suyuru truly was. He said he liked me, but in reality, the only person he ever liked was himself. To him, I was just something to show off. Something to feed his ego that had been distorted by constant praise. Look, even a goddess like Aphrodite, chased by countless men, willingly crawled at his feet for him to command and toy with. How powerful, how twisted must someone be to feel that way? No matter how he tried to explain himself, in the eyes of someone like Suyuru, everything was just another excuse. So I didn't bother responding. I didn't care anymore. Even if he proved himself 100 times, or 200 times, or 1,000 times, I would never look his way again. There was no need to waste another second of my life on someone like him. In my second year studying abroad in Milan, I seized the chance to participate in many competitions, broadening my horizons and opening new doors. I was busy working with teachers and classmates researching the most popular fashion trends. When I had free time, I would hang out and party with my friends, resting, traveling the world with my blonde, blue-eyed girlfriend, and enjoying the beauty of life together. Life is long, and I still have a vast, unpredictable future to explore. How could I ever misjudge someone again and drag myself into a mess? Day by day, time passed. Soon, my 3-year exchange student life came to an end. I returned home with a suitcase full of gold medals. As soon as I got off the plane, I saw my parents waiting with flowers, along with a few roommates. After such a long time apart, I was excited too. I ran over to hug everyone. We exchanged greetings and headed to the restaurant that had been booked in advance. There, I reunited with Professor Chun after 3 years. I formally placed my suitcase in front of him, raised my hand in a playful salute, reporting, "Teacher, your student has completed the mission you gave me. Please review my 3 years of work." Professor Chun already knew about the designs I had made abroad. But after a long time apart, he was happy to joke with me for a bit too. He lightly patted my shoulder and said seriously, "Do not become arrogant or complacent. You still have to keep striving for greater heights." That comment made everyone around us burst into laughter. My mother warmly invited everyone to sit and eat. Glasses clinked. Chatter filled the air. The whole place was filled with joy and celebration. After the meal, I took a few invitation cards from my bag and handed them out. My eyes were full of joy. Today, I invited you all here not only to catch up on old times, but also to invite you to attend the fashion show I had been preparing for a long time. Hearing that, even Professor Chun showed a shocked expression. A fashion show in Milan? Then I must go and properly review your results. My roommates also started squealing with excitement. When is it? If I go apply for a visa now, I should still make it, right? Heyokin, we want VIP seats, okay? Hearing everyone speak so eagerly, genuinely happy for me, I felt a warmth in my heart. This fashion show was organized by my mentor in Milan. Because of my hard work over 3 years, I achieved outstanding results and earned the opportunity to present my own collection in this exhibition. It would be my first time on such a big stage. So I felt it was necessary to share this precious stage with all the people who truly cherish me. And the people I invited did not disappoint me. They all arrived at the airport on the scheduled day. Not a single one missing, with hope and excitement for the future. I boarded the plane with everyone, a plane that might begin an entirely new chapter in life. Before departure, I turned around one last time. And just outside the boarding gate, I saw a very familiar figure. It was Suyuru, but my gaze did not linger on him, because I knew he was no longer allowed to enter Milan. He would never again be granted entry into my life. We were just a people among the crowd, two strangers about to pass by one another.